Hello, and welcome back to our Ragnarok tutorial series. In these next couple of videos, we will go through the steps necessary to get our very own Ragnarok Online server up and running. In this specific video, we will set up the majority of the trunk, get our PHPMyAdmin running with our first account, and get the green light indicating the server is online. If you haven't watched them already, I'd recommend going back checking out the network and server setup series I released. It goes through all the steps to get you up with a system ready to go for these next videos. Let's install the necessary libraries for Ragnarok Online to run. There's quite a few commands to go through, so only touch on them as we go. There are a number of utilities our system needs to run all the necessary libraries for Ragnarok Online. It needs to know how to send data appropriately across various networks, how to convert and read code accordingly with PMA and the web server, and needs to be able to read all the necessary code used with the server itself. Some of the essential packages we're going to want to install are the build essentials, the zlibrary1g, and the PCRE3 development package. Build essential is necessary for building packages, zlibrary1g is for deflating the compression methods, and PCR3 is for syntax control for a Perl language. We'll also enter in sudo apt install, and the package we're going to install is software properties common and apt transport HTTPS. Software properties are for managing distribution and vendor resources, and apt transport HTTPS allows us to use the HTTPS protocol for our application. Next, we will enter in sudo add apt repository, and the repository we're going to enter in is ppa andrej/php. This unofficial package gives some functionality and compatibility for much of the PHP functions we're going to require for our website. This is fully up to you to install or not. If you have issues with the PHP later on following these steps, this may be your resolution. And finally, we're going to enter in sudo apt get install, and we're going to choose the G++ library. G++ is used for just about everything we need to operate the source code and the executable. The optional, but ever popular, Maria database can be installed as well. We can enter in sudo apt install library Maria database development package, the library Maria database development package compatibility package, and we will enter that in. For this example moving forward, however, we will be using PHPMyAdmin, or PMA. We will do sudo apt-get install PHPMyAdmin, mysql-server, mysql-client, git make gcc, and library mysql client development package. All these packages together, including PHP, git, make, and gcc, will be required to run Ragnarok Online. That covers all of what we need to get running, except one thing. We still have to install the server files. Before we get installing the server, we should make a separate user to control all things related to the Ragnarok server. If you're running on your Ragnarok user, that's great. We'll proceed after this next step. If you're running a VPS, you want to operate under a separate user that is not root. To do this, we will make a new user by entering in sudo add user and follow it with the name raguser, for example. And then we'll enter in our details, our password, and our name, and hit enter. Once confirmed, we will give permission to raguser with sudo usermod -ag sudo raguser. Now the G has to be capitalized. What this does is the ag argument being added adds the user to a group, and the user of that group being raguser and the group being sudo. We can switch to that user now. We can bring down the top menu and switch users or log out. If you're on a VPS, you need to type in su followed by the username. With everything set up for our account, we can start downloading the rAthena trunk right from the GitHub to get the latest version. We're going to change the ending to have it installed to a folder we set the name to. Enter in git clone https://github.com/rAthena/rAthena.git. And then we're going to do a space followed by tilde and a /. Now this will create and enter into the folder rAthena for all these files. Now we can open up that directory by right-clicking it and opening up in terminal, or we can type cd followed by a tilde and a / and type in the folder name rAthena. Once inside that directory, we can now pull the latest data from GitHub using git pull. We're up to date with the latest version. Now we have to install the server's database and proceed to linking them with the files we just installed. Enter in sudo mysql and it should populate with the SQL terminal. This is where we will create our first database and add the first administrator account to the player list. In all caps, enter in create database followed by our database name. In this example, we are going to type in rag server. This will make the initial database. Now we're going to do create user in caps, and in a single quotation, we're going to do rag user as our username, though you can customize this to whatever you want, followed by the @ symbol. And then we're going to open up the quotations again and enter in localhost. This will point the rag user at the local host. Then we're going to identify it by strong password that we're going to enter in. Now for each line you enter, be sure to close it off with a semicolon. This will tell the computer each line is ready to go. The next one we're going to do is create user, rag user, and apply it to the modulo. We will then identify it by the strong password and close it off with a semicolon. Now the modulo function is used to get the remainder of a division. This will retrieve only unique functions of the record depending on the specified column or expression. We'll grant all privileges to the database we just made. Grant all privileges on, and then we'll enter in rag server with a period. We'll then add a space and asterisk, followed by 2, and then we'll direct it from rag user to localhost with the grant option. This will grant all privileges for the rag user at localhost onto the rag server. We will also apply this to the modulo. We'll also apply it to the localhost again with the grant option. Now notice this time the server name is different. What this will do is make rag user our primary user for PHPMyAdmin and MySQL servers. And finally, we'll create the section for the logs to be saved and grant privileges to that as well. We'll type in create database and enter in log. This will create a separate database outside of the rag server called log. We will then grant all on log to rag user at localhost. Phew, that's it. We can type and enter and exit to leave now. Now that we have a database, it's time to enter in the rest of the structure for that database. We can easily do this with an execution command from MySQL. Enter in MySQL, and we're going to enter in the username as rag user, and the password, we're not going to enter anything into the password, we're instead going to skip right to entering in rag server for the destination we want to enter into. We're going to do a less than sign, followed by the rAthena's SQL file directory, and include the main.sql. So mine presents as /home rag user rAthena SQL files main.sql. And I'll do the same thing for log server, so we'll replace rag server with log, and also main.sql with logs.sql. So this will tell MySQL where to find the execution script and direct it to there. We're also telling it where to put that execution script into. In this case, it's the rag server and the log database. The destination of this is in our rAthena trunk under the SQL files folder. Now we're ready to create our first player account. We can do this through a command via MySQL, but this will take much time to type out and explain. Instead, we will navigate to our browser and log into PHPMyAdmin directly. The domain will be our DNS we set up earlier, /PHPMyAdmin. We will log in using the name and password we set up earlier, and it will load into our database. In PMA, we will find many options that we can utilize for a more effective experience. On the left, you have the databases currently created, which we can also use as panel to navigate to them as well. On the top, we have many tabs, all with unique functions. We'll start with the Database tab. Here we will notice the rag server database was created. This is great. After browsing the database, I can see it's a clean install. I will open the login page to see if the account is there. And yep, there it is, all good here. Now this area right here is where we will want to edit and set up all the configuration files for our server. We'll come back to this page soon. In the root of the rag server database, we will have a tab at the top that says SQL. If we are setting up a server that already has player data populated, we can simply drag and drop those .sql files into this window. It will load everything into the appropriate database for you automatically, assuming the names are correct. If not, you will have to edit the names. I will drag an item database file over to show. There we go. Loading up. Once complete, success or failure, we can hit go. It will display a notice at the bottom. Green is for good, red is for not good. Everything looks good so far. Also double check it's in the database. And there it is. Now we have a functional database for Ragnarok. That's perfect. We just need to tell the server files to read this database now. I'll just double check my item database is there. And there it is, ready to go. We are now ready to move on to setting up the trunk to read the database we just made. Let's go back to the rAthena folder and navigate to the config folder. We'll start by opening up the char_athena.config. This is the character config. This is where we will hold a lot of the details about our character server. At the top, we have user ID and password fields we need to fill out. To do this, we need to edit the S1 P1 values to something unique to our server. I'll do this using a password generator from online. In this example, I've set the value of the password to be the maximum characters the config can take. The value in the example says 24, but it was in fact 23 for me, so it did not work at the first time. We'll run into that in just a moment though. Copying that and going back to the config file, we can paste it into the user ID, generate another one, and paste that into the password. While we're here, we will uncomment the login IP and bind IP lines. To do this, we'll need to delete the forward slashes that disables them. You can go through this file anytime and change the various game features and settings. I'll find the map-Athena config and edit this to reflect the same values as well as enable the bind IP lines for this file and the login Athena config. Stepping into the enter Athena config, we'll have all the SQL database details set up here. This is the most important step to follow. Each section is given a username, password, and database to target. Make sure they are spelled exactly as is, and in most cases, the login case sensitive is set to yes. This example will require it. We'll go through and edit the name to be our login name. The password must be exactly as initialized. And the database will be our RAG server database. We'll do this for each section. In the last section, we have the logs. It appears in my first round of things I set this to the RAG server database. This is incorrect, as earlier we set the logs separate from the server's database, RAG server. We'll change this to logs and we can save all the files. There are many more files that we can edit, but for now in this video we'll keep to the basics. These basics are character Athena, inter Athena, login Athena, map Athena, subnet Athena, and web Athena. This may sound like a lot, but don't worry. There's only a single to a few changes necessary in each file to begin. The rest of the file is completely optional to edit. The web Athena, being one of the last two files we need to edit, will be a quick one. If we want to use the web server port, we'll likely want to bind the IP. The web port by default is 8888. And lastly, we have the subnet Athena. Now with the subnet, you typically won't need to modify this. However, if you experience an issue where the server cannot connect or find you, it may be required for you to add your IP here. The subnet IP is much different from your local address. If you cannot find this address, you can alternatively use the IPv4 address. To obtain this, search your internet settings or Google "What's my IP" and it will present you with your public IPv4. So what is a subnetwork anyways? In short, we will separate your network devices so they can operate on their own in the network, thus subnetting into their own network. We do this to keep the Ragnarok server separate from other entities in the network, like your phone. We're going to navigate back to PMA and open our login table inside the Ragnarok server database. We'll need that username and password values from earlier. If you forgot these values, you can find them again in the map or character Athena config files. As mentioned earlier, I entered a 24-character password. I need to go back into the map and character Athena config files and change it to be 23-character long. With these two values, we will enter them directly into the database line for the login table. Double-click the username and password to change these. With this done, the server should be able to log in now. It's time to create the first account, your account. We can do this through MySQL in the terminal by entering a long string of values. However, this will be hard to explain and it's all in one line of code. Instead, we will add the account here in PMA. At the top of your RAG server database, you'll have an insert tab. We can insert a new account using this table's format. We'll make the account ID and give it a default value of 2 million or something higher. Set a user ID and password. Click a gender that is not S. Enter an email address. Set the group ID 299. This is for admins only. Skip down to birthday and add your birthday. And that's all we require. We can submit with Go and double check the account was made in the login table. There it is, our first account. We're almost done. We just need to get the server online and we can start making our first client. Let's open up the terminal in the rAthena directory. We'll need to give our starting script permission to execute. To do this, we will enter in sudo chmod a+x .hack configure. In this command, the A stands for all, the plus stands for add, and the X stands for execute. What we've done here is given the configuration file the ability to execute. This is required to process the data inside its script. With all this set, we can now enable the server into the packet version we set for our client. The command for this is .hack configure ---- packet ver equals year, month, day. As displayed on the screen here, we have our enable packet version, and we're telling it to enable packet version 2022-0406. This would be for the year 2024 at month April on day 6. Once we enter this in, this will take a moment to process. Once processed, we can almost start the server. We have to make a clean install, compile it, and give execution permissions to the startup files it generates. We'll start with cleaning up the files. Inside the rAthena directory, we're going to enter in the command make clean. This should only take a second, followed by make server. This step can take a while. We need to give the same permissions as before to our login, map, and character server files. To do this, enter in sudo chmod a+x, just like before, and then we're going to enter in login server and sudo chmod ax character server and sudo chmod ax map server. In the trunk, we are given a shell script file called Athena start. This is what we will be using to start, stop, restart, and check the status of our server. I'll run the start command to get things going. The commands for the script are to start the server, .hack Athena start, start. To stop the server, .hack Athena start, stop. To restart the server, .hack Athena start, restart. And to check the status, .hack Athena start, status. We can now use these commands to manage the server's status. And I'll check the status. It appears we have a successful start to the server. We're online now. We just need to connect in game now. In the next video, we will go through selecting our first client, setting the packet version to our trunk, and getting into the game for the first time. I'll see you next time.